This is this is I just had a brain blast and through certain means, aka, oh, let's close that. Through certain quote unquote means, I've gotten a few books that might work through. Maybe a chapter or two a day. I have to try to find new books every time. We just work through one big one. It looks pretty lengthy. I don't know. We'll see how long it takes for a chapter. Shouldn't take that long, but we'll see. It might drag a little, but I'm not gonna read the background or anything because I feel like you should know the book by now. But I'll read the preface. I'll read it. Alright. Preface. I never gave much thought of how I'd like to die, though I had reason enough in the last few months. But even if I had, I never had imagined it like this. I stared without breathing across a long room into the dark eyes of the hunter. He looked pleasantly back at me. Surely it was a good way to die. In the place of someone else, someone I loved. Noble even. That ought to count for something. Though I knew that if I'd never gone to Forks, I wouldn't be facing death now. But terrified as I was, I couldn't bring myself to regret the decision. When life offers you a dream, so far beyond any of your expectations, it's not reasonable to grieve when it comes to an end. The hunter smiled in a friendly way as he sauntered forward to kill me. 1. The first sight. I'm fucking out here. I'm trying to do a movie or fucking video for my YouTube. I'm gonna get fucking down dislikes, and the algorithm is never gonna fucking promote videos because of you. My mother drove me to the airport with the windows rolled down. It was 75 degrees in this Phoenix. The sky was perfect, cloudless blue. I was wearing my favorite shirt, sleeveless, white. At least. I was wearing it as a farewell gesture. My carry-on item was a parka, an Olympic Venezuela of West Wellington State. A small town named Forks existed under a near constant cover of clouds. Very inconsequential town more than any other place in the United States of America. It was from this town and its gloomy, omnipresent shade that my mother escaped with me when I was only a few months old. It was in this town that I'd be compelled to spend a month every summer until I was 14. It was that year I finally put my foot down. It was past 3 summers my dad, Charlie, vacationed with me in California for 2 weeks instead. It was to Forks now exiled myself. An action that I took with great ire. Detested Forks. I loved Phoenix. I loved the sun, blistering heat, the vigorous, sprawling city. But my mom said to me, the last of 1,000 times before I get on the plane, you don't have to do this. My mom looks like me, except for short hair, laugh lines. I felt a spasm of panic as I stared her off like childhood eyes. How could I leave my loving, erratic, harebrained mother to fend for herself? Of course she had Phil now, so the bills would probably get paid. There would be food in the refrigerator, gas in her car, and someone to call when she got lost, but still, I want to go, I lied. I had always been a bad liar, but I had been saying this lie so frequently that I almost am convincing now. Tell Charlie, I said. Hi. I will. I'll see you soon, she insisted. You can come over when you want. I'll come right back as soon as you need me. But I could see the sacrifice in her eyes beyond the promise. Don't worry about me, I urged. It'll be great. I love you, Mom. She hugged me tightly for a minute, and then I got on a plane, and then she was gone. The 4-hour flight from Phoenix to Seattle, another hour in a small plane to Port Angeles, and then an hour drive back down to Forks. Flying doesn't bother me. An hour in the car with Charlie, though, I was a little worried about. Charlie had really been fairly nice with the whole thing. He seemed genuinely pleased I was coming to live with him for the first time with any degree of permanence. He'd already got me registered for high school and was going to help me get a car. But it was sure to be awkward with Charlie. I mean, neither of us would what anyone would call verbose, and I didn't know what there was to say regardless. Jesus, we're jumping big. We're jumping from grade 1 to fucking middle school. Whew. I knew that I was more a little confused by my decision. Like my mother before me, I didn't make a secret to taste of forks. When I landed at Port Angeles, it was raining. I didn't see a snowman, just unavoidable. I'd already said goodbye to my son. Excuse me. Charlie was waiting for me with the cruiser. I was expecting this too. Charlie's the police chief's one. Sorry, I need some water. Charlie is police chief's one to the good people of Forks. My primary motivation behind buying the car, despite the scarcity of my funds, was that I refused to be driven around a car that was red and blue lights on top. Nothing slows down traffic like a cop. Jackson gave me an awkward, one-armed hug when I stumbled my way off the plane. "It's good to see you, Bells," he said, smiling automatically. He caught and he steadied me. "You haven't changed much. How's Renee?" "Mom's fine. Good to see you too, Dad." I wasn't allowed to call Charlie to his face. Why not? You're gonna say what the fuck you want. You live with him now, right? I only had a few bags. Most of my Arizona clothes were too permeable for Washington. My mom and I had pooled our resources to supplement my winter wardrobe, but it's still scanty. It all fit easily into the trunk of the cruiser. "I found a good car for you, really cheap," he announced when we were strapped in. "What kind of car?" I was suspicious of the way he said "good car for you" as opposed to "good car." It's a truck actually, a Chevy. "Where do you find it?" "Do you remember Billy Black on the La Push?" La Push is the tiny Indian reserve at the coast. No, obviously fucking not. He used to go fishing with us during the summer, Charlie prompted. That explains why I don't remember him. I do a good job of blocking painful, unnecessary things from my memory. Fucking relatable. "He's in a wheelchair now," Charlie continued. When I didn't respond. "You can't drive anymore." He offered to sell me his truck cheap. "What year is it?" I could see from his change of expression that this was a question he was hoping I would ask. "Well, Billy's done a lot of work to the engine. It's only a few years old, really." I hope he didn't think so little of me to believe I'd get up that easily. "When did he buy it?" "He bought it in 1984, I think." "Did he buy it new?" "Oh no, I think it was in the early 60s or late 50s at the earliest," he admitted sheepishly. "Dad, I don't really know anything about cars, but I wouldn't be able to fix it if anything went wrong. I couldn't really afford a mechanic." "Really, Bill, this thing was great. They don't build them like that anymore." I thought to myself that it had possibilities, as a nickname at the very least. How cheap is cheap? After all that, I couldn't part on the compromise on. That's the part I couldn't compromise on. "Well, honey, I already kind of bought it for you as a homecoming gift." Charlie peeked sideways at me with a hopeful expression. "Wow, free. You didn't do that, Dad. I was going to buy myself a car." "I don't mind. I want you to be happy here." He's looking ahead of the road when Charlie said this. When he said this, Charlie wasn't comfortable with expressing emotions out loud. I hear that for him, so I was looking straight ahead as I responded. Fucking too relatable. "It's really nice, Dad. I really appreciate it." No need for that. No need to add that being happy in Forks is impossibility. He didn't need to suffer along with me. I never looked a free truck in a month or an engine. "Well, no, you're welcome," he moaned, embarrassed by my thanks. We exchanged a few more comments on the weather, which is wet. It was pretty much it for conversation. We stared at the windows in silence. It was beautiful, of course, I can't deny that. Everything was green. The trees, the trunks covered with moss, the branches hanging with the canopy of it. What the fuck? Oh. The ground covered with ferns, even the air filtered with down greenly through the leaves. It was too green, an alien planet. Eventually, we made it to Charlie's. He still lived in the small 2-bedroom house that he bought with my mother back in the early days of their marriage. It was the only kind of days their marriage had, the early ones. They parked in the street in front of the house that never changed. Was a new to me, truck. It was faded red color, with big round fenders and a bulbous cap. To my intense surprise, I loved it. I didn't know if it would run, but you could see myself in it. Plus, it was one of those solid iron affairs that never gets damaged. The kind you see as an accident, paint unscratched, surrounded by the pieces of foreign car it destroyed. Oh, Dad, I love it. Thanks. Not my horrific day. Tomorrow would be that much less dreadful. I would be faced with the choice of either walking 2 miles in the rain to school or accepting riding in the Chief's cruiser. I'm glad you like it, Charlie gruffled, embarrassed again. It was only one trip to get all my stuff upstairs. I got the west bedroom, faced over the front yard. The room was familiar. It had belonged to me since I was born. The wooden floor, the light blue walls, peaked ceilings, the yellow lace curtains around the window. They're all a part of my childhood. The only changes Charlie ever made was switching the crib for a bed, adding a desk as I grew. The desk now had a second-hand computer with the phone line and the for the modem stapled along the floor for the nearest phone jack. As a stipulation from my mother that we stay in touch easily, the rocking chair from my baby days was still in the corner. There was only one small bathroom at the top of the stairs, which I had to share with Charlie, but I was not trying to dwell too much on that fact. One of the best things about Charlie is he doesn't hover. He left me alone to unpack and get settled. A feat that would only been altogether impossible for my mother. It was nice to be alone, not to have to smile and look pleased, a relief to stare dejectedly at the window at sheeting rain, and let just a few tears escape. I was in the mood to go on a real crying jag. I'd save that for bedtime when I have to think was that coming morning. Fucking relatable, bro. Alright. Forks High School, I had a friending total of 357, now 58 students. There were more than 700 people in my junior class alone back home. If all the kids here had grown up together, their grandparents had been dollars back then. I had been the new girl from the big city, a curiosity, freak. Maybe if I looked like a girl from Phoenix, I would work this to my advantage, but physically, I'd never fit anywhere. I should be tan, sporty, blonde, a volleyball player, a cheerleader perhaps. All the things that could go living in the valley of the sun. As thin as an ivory skinned, without even the excuse of blue eyes or red hair. Despite the constant sunshine, I'd always been slender, but soft somehow. Obviously not an athlete. I didn't have the necessary hand-eye coordination to play sports without humiliating myself and harming both myself and anyone else who stood too close. I had finished putting my clothes in the old man dresser. I took my bag of the bathroom accessories and went to the communal bathroom to clean myself up after the day of travel. I looked at my face in the mirror as I brushed through my tangled damp hair. Maybe the light, I already looked swollen, unhealthy. My skin could be pretty. It was very clear, almost translucent looking. It all depended on color. I had no color here. I didn't relate well to people my age. Maybe that was the truth. I didn't relate well to people in general, or with people, period. Even my mother, who I was closer to than anyone else on the planet, was never in harmony with me, never on exactly the same page. Sometimes I wondered if I was seeing the same things through my eyes that the rest of the world was seeing through theirs. Maybe it's a glitch in my brain. The cause didn't matter. All that mattered was the effect, and tomorrow would just be the beginning. I didn't sleep well that night, even after I was done crying. The constant whooshing of the rain and the wind across my roof wouldn't fade in the background. I pulled the faded old quilt over my head, laid her out of the pillow too, but I couldn't fall asleep until after midnight, when the rain finally settled into a quiet drizzle. The thick fog was all you could see out my window in the morning. I could feel the claustrophobia is keeping up with me. You can never see the sky here. It was like a cage. Breakfast with Charlie was a quiet event. He wished me good luck at school. I thanked him, knowing his hope was wasted. Good luck tended to avoid me. Charlie left first, off to the police station now with his wife and family. After he left, I sat at the old square table and one of the three unmatching chairs, and examined his small kitchen. Its dark paneled walls, with bright yellow cabinets, and his white floor. I feel like I should know how to pronounce this, but I feel like I definitely should know how to pronounce this.
Linoleum.
Linoleum, yes. I should have known that. Linoleum floor. Nothing was changed. My mother had painted the cabinets 18 years ago in an attempt to bring more sunshine into the house. Over the small fireplace in the adjoining handkerchief-sized family room was a row of pictures. First, the wedding picture of Charlie and my mom in Las Vegas, then one of the three of us in the hospital after I was born, taken by a helpful nurse, followed by the procession of my school pictures up to last year's. Those were kind of embarrassing to look at. I would have to wait to see what I could get Charlie to put up them somewhere else, at least while I was living here. It was impossible being in this house, not to realize that Charlie had never gone over my mom. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to leave too early for school, but I couldn't stay in the house anymore. I donned my jacket, which had the feel of a biohazard school, and headed into the rain. It was just a drizzling still, not enough to soak me through immediately. As I reached for the house key that was always hidden at the eaves of the door, I locked up. The swooshing of a new waterproof boot was unnerving. I missed a number of country gravel as I walked. I couldn't pause and admire my truck again as I wanted. As I hurried to get out the misty wet that swirled around my head that clung to my hair under my hood. Inside the truck was nice and dry. Either Billy and Charlie obviously cleaned it up, but the tan, unhorseled seats smelled faintly of tobacco, gasoline, and peppermint. The engine started quickly, to my relief, but loudly roaring to life, idling at top volume. While the truck diesel was bound to have a flaw, the antique radio worked. It was a plus that I hadn't expected. Finding the way to school wasn't difficult, though. I'd never been there before. School was, like most other things, just up the highway. It's not obvious that it was like a high school. Only the sign, which declared it to be the Forks High School, excuse me, made me stop. It looked like a collection of matching houses built with maroon-colored bricks. There was many trees and shrubs. I couldn't see the size at first. Where was the feel of the institution? I wondered nostalgically. There were chain-like fences, metal detectors. Why were there? Where were they? I see. I parked in front of the first building, which had a small sign over the door reading front office. No one else was parked there, so I was sure it was off limits, but I decided to get directions inside instead of circling around in the rain like an idiot. I stepped unwillingly out of the toasty truck cab as I walked down the little stone path, lined with the dark hedges. I took a deep breath before opening the door. Inside was brightly lit, warmer than I had hoped. The office was a small, little waiting area with padded folding for chairs, orange flecked commercial carpet. Notices of words cluttering the walls, the big clock ticking loudly. Plants grew everywhere in large plastic pots. If there wasn't enough greenery outside. The room was cut in half by a long counter, cluttered with wire baskets full of paper and brightly colored flyers taped on its front. There were 3 desks behind the counter, one of which was manned by a large, red-haired woman wearing glasses. She was wearing a purple t-shirt, which immediately made me feel overdressed. The red-haired woman looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm Isabel Swan," I informed her, the immediate awareness in her eyes lit in her eyes. I expected the topic of gossip, no doubt, that out of the chief's slightly ex-wife was coming home at last. "Of course," she said. She dug through precariously stacked of documents on her desk until she found the ones she was looking for. "I have your schedule right here, and a map of the school." She brought several sheets over to the counter to show me. She went through the classes for me, highlighting the best route for each of them on the map. They gave me a slip to have each teacher sign, which I was to bring back at the end of the day. She smiled and hoped, like Charlie, I would like you sharing forks. I smiled back as convincingly as I could. When I went back out to the truck, without soon starting to arrive, I drove around the school, following the line of traffic. I was glad to see most of the cars were older like mine, nothing flashy. At home, I lived in one of the few lower-income neighborhoods, that include the Paradise Valley district. It's common thing to see a new Mercedes or Porsche in the student lot. The nicest car here was a shiny Volvo that stood out. I cut the engine as soon as I was in a spot so that the thunderous volume wouldn't draw attention to me. I looked at the map in the trunk, trying to memorize it now. Hopefully I won't have to walk around with it stuck in front of my nose all day. I stuffed everything in my bag. I slugged the strap over my shoulder and sucked in a huge breath. "I can do this," I lied feebly. No one was going to bite me. I finally exhaled. See that foreshadowing? No one's gonna bite me. Fucking, am I the fucking meme face? The fucking kid? That's me right now. I finally exhaled and stepped out of the truck. I kept my face pulled back into my hood as I walked to the sidewalk, crowded with teenagers. My plain black jacket did stand out, and I noticed with relief. Once I got around to the cafeteria, the building 3 was the easy spot. A large black 3 painted on the white square in the east corner. I felt the breathing gradually creeping towards hyperventilation as I approached the door. I tried holding my breath as I followed 2 unisex raincoats through their door. The classroom was small. The people in front of me stopped just inside the door to hang up their coats on a long row of hooks. I copied them. There were 2 girls, one a porcelain-colored blonde, and the other also pale, light brown hair. At least my skin wouldn't stand out much here. I took the slip out of the teacher, a tall, balding man whose nameplate identifying him as Mr. Mason. He gawked at me when he saw my name, not an encouraging response, and of course I flushed tomato red. But at least he sent me to an empty desk at the back without introducing me to the class. It was harder for me and my new classmates to stare at me than back, but somehow they managed. I kept my head down on the reading list the teacher had given me, fairly basic. Bronte, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Faulkner. I already read everything. It was comforting and boring. I wondered if my mom would send me the folder of my old essays, or if she'd think that would be cheating. I went through different arguments in my head with her while the teacher dawned on me. When the bell rang and a nasal buzzing noise, I gaggly boy with skin problems and black hair as an oil slick leaned across the aisle to talk to me. "You're Isabel Swan, aren't you?" He looked like overly helpful chest club type. "Bella," I corrected. The man within a 3-seat radius turned to look at me. "So where's the next class?" he asked. I had to check in my bag. Government with Jefferson in Building 6. There is nowhere to look without meeting curious eyes. I'm heading to Building 4. I could trade away. Definitely over helpful. I'm Eric, he added. I smiled tentatively. "Thanks." We got our jackets, headed out into the rain, which I picked up. I could have sworn several people behind us were walking close enough to eavesdrop. I hope I wasn't getting paranoid. "So it's a lot different than Phoenix, huh?" he asked. "Very. It doesn't rain very much, does it? 3 or 4 times a year." "Wow. What must that be like?" he wondered. "Sunny," I told him. "You all look very tan." My mother is part albino. He studied my face apprehensively, and I sighed. I looked at the clouds and a sense of humor was in a mix. A few months of this, and I'd forgotten how to use sarcasm. And I'd forget how to use sarcasm. We walked back around the cafeteria. This house was buildings of the gym. Eric walked me right through the door. Through it, it was clearly marked. Well, good luck, he said as he touched the handle. Well, maybe with some other class together, he sounded hopeful. I smiled at him vaguely and went inside. The rest of the morning passed in about the same fashion. My trigonometry teacher, Mr. Wagner, who would have hated the most anyways because of the subject he taught, would only allow me to stand out in front of the class and introduce myself. I stammered, blushed, and tripped over my own boots on the way to my seat. Fucking spaghetti falling out. After 2 classes, I started recognizing several of the same faces. Several faces. I recognized several faces in each class. There we go. There's always someone braver than others who would introduce themselves and ask me questions about his liking forks. I tried to be diplomatic, but mostly I just lied a lot. At least I know I never needed them out. One girl sat next to me in both trig and Spanish. She walked with me to the cafeteria for lunch. She was tiny, several inches shorter than my 5 feet 4 inches, but her wildly curly hair made up for a lot of the difference between our heights. I couldn't remember her name, so I smiled and nodded as she prattled around the teachers and classes. I didn't try to keep up. We sat at the end of the table with several of her friends, but who she introduced. Where's the end of the chapter? Before I keep going. Jesus Christ, man. How long is this? Oh, okay. At the end of the table. We sat at the end of the full table. I had to get it out, you know? I didn't expect it to be that much. Fuck me, dude. Intermission. We sat at the end of the full table with several of our friends, who she introduced me to. I forgot all their names as soon as she spoke to them. She seemed impressed by her bravery in speaking to me. The boy from English, Eric, waved at me from across the room. It was there, sitting at the lunchroom, trying to make conversation with the curious strangers when I first saw them. I was trying to see that for a right? They were sitting in the corner of the cafeteria, as far away from where I sat as possible. The long room. There was 5 of them. They weren't talking. They weren't eating. Although each of them had a tray with untouched food in front of them. They weren't gawking at me, unlike most other students. So it was safe to stare at them without much fear of meeting the exclusive interest of their eyes. But none of those things that got caught held my attention. They didn't look anything alike. Of the 3 boys, one was big, muscled like a serious weightlifter, with dark curly hair. Another was taller, leaner, but still muscular, honey blonde. And the last was lanky, less bulky, untidy bronze-colored hair. He was more boyish than the others, who looked like they could be in college or even teachers, rather than students. And the girls were opposites. One was a tall statuette. What the fuck? I feel like we're learning as we read.
Statuesque.
Right. She had a beautiful figure. The kind you saw on the cover of Sports Illustrated's swimsuit issue. The kind that made every girl around her take a hit on her self-esteem just by being in the same room. Her hair was golden, gently waving in the middle of her back. The short girl was pixie-like, and thin in the extreme, with small features. Her hair was a deep black, cropped short, pointing in every direction, and yet they were all exactly alike. Every single one of them chalky pale, palest of the students, living in the sunless town, paler than me, the albino. They had very dark eyes, despite the range of their hair tones. They had dark shadows under those eyes, purplish, bruise-like shadows. They were all suffering from a sleepless night, or almost done recovering from a broken nose. Through their noses, all their features were straight, perfect, angular. But all this is not why I can look away. I stare because of their faces, so different, so similar. were all devastatingly, inhumanly beautiful. They were faces you'd never expected to see, except perhaps on airbrushed pages of a fashion magazine, or painted by an old master the face of an angel. It was hard to decide who was the most beautiful. Maybe the blonde girl, maybe the bronze-haired boy. They're all looking away from each other, away from the other students, away from anything. And particularly, I found I could tell. I watched the small girl rose her tray, unopened soda, unbidden apple, and walked away the graceful loop that belonged to the runaway. I watched, amazed by her lithe dancer step, until she dumped her tray, gunned to the back door, faster I could have thought possible. My eyes darted back to the others, who sat unchanged. Who are they? I asked the girl in the Spanish class, whose name I'd forgotten. She looked up to see what I meant, though already knowing, probably, from my tone. Suddenly he looked at her. The thinner one, the boyish one, the younger one, perhaps. He looked at my neighbor for just a fraction of a second, then his dark eyes flickered to mine. He looked away, more quickly than I could. The flush of embarrassment as I dropped my eyes at once. Sure, spaghetti's falling out when they made eye contact. In a brief flash of a glance, his face held nothing of interest. It was like she had called his name, and he looked up in vulnerability response. He already decided not to answer. His neighbor giggled in embarrassment, looking at the table like I did. That's Edward and Emmett Cohen, and Rosario and Jasper Hale. The one on the left was Alan Cohen. Alice Cohen. They all lived together with Dr. Cohen and his wife. She said this under her breath. I glanced sideways at the beautiful boy who was looking at his tray now, picking a bag out of pieces of his long pale fingers, his mouth moving very quickly, his lips barely opening at all. Does he still looked away? It felt like he was speaking quietly to him. Strange, unpopular names about these kind of names my grandparents had, but music is in the vogue here. Small town names? I finally remembered that my neighbor was called Jessica, a very common name. There were two girls named Jessica in my history class back home. They are very nice looking. I struggled with a conspicuous understatement. Yes, Jessica agreed with another girl. They're all together though. Rosaline and Jasper and Alice. I mean, they live together. Her voice sounds shock and commandment of a small town. I thought critically, but being honest, I had to admit that even in Phoenix, it would cause gossip. Which ones are the Cohens? I asked. They don't look related. They're not. They're not. Dr. Cohen is really young, in his 20s or early 30s. They're all adopted. Hales are brothers, sisters, twins. Hales are brothers and sisters, twins. The blondes and their foster children. They look a little old for foster children. They are now. Jasper and Rosalie are both 18, but they've been with Miss Cohen since they were 8. She's like their aunt or something like that. That's really nice for them to take care of the kids like that when they're so young and everything. I guess so, Jessica admitted reluctantly. I got the impression she didn't like the doctor and his wife for some reason. With glances she was throwing at their adopted children. I presume the reason was jealousy. I think that Miss Cohen can't have any kids though, she added. As if she lessened their kindness. Throughout the conversation, my eyes flickered again and again at the table where the strange family sat. They continued to look at the walls and not eat. Have they always lived in Forks? I asked. Surely you have not noticed them in one of my summer years. No, she said in a voice that implied that it should be obvious. Even to a new arrival like me. They just moved into town 2 years ago from somewhere in Alaska. I felt a surge of pity and relief. Pity because of the beautiful they are. They were outsiders. Clear and not accepted. A relief that I was not only the only newcomer here, and certainly not the most interesting by any standard. I examined them, the youngest of the Collins. I looked up and met my gaze, this time with evident curiosity in his expression. I looked away swiftly, and it seemed that his glance held some kind of unmet expectation. Which one is the boy with the reddish-brown hair? I asked, peeked from the corner of my eye. He was still staring at me, not gawking like the other students had today. He had slightly frustrated expression. I looked down again. That's Edward. He's gorgeous, of course, but don't waste your time. He doesn't date. Apparently none of the girls here are good-looking enough for him. She sniffed, clear nose with sour grapes. I wondered why you turned her down. I bit my lip to hide my smile. and I glanced at him again. His face was turned away, but I thought his cheek appeared, lifted, as he was smiling too. After a few more minutes, 4 of them left the table together. They were all noticeably graceful, even the big brawny one, which is unsettling to watch. The one named Edward didn't look at me again. I sat at the table with Jessica and her friends longer than I would have if I had spent it alone. I was anxious not to be late for class on my first day. One of my new acquaintances, who considerately required me their name was Angela, had biology 2 with me in the next hour. We walked to the class together in silence. She was shy too. When we entered the classroom, Angela went to sit the black-topped lab table, exactly like the ones I was used to. She already had a neighbor. In fact, all the tables were filled but one. Next to the center aisle, I recognized Edward Cullen with the unusual hair sitting next to the single open seat. I walked down the aisle and introduced myself to the teacher and got my slip signed. I watched him surreptitiously? What the fuck? Why do they use these words like...
Surreptitiously.
Surreptitiously. Like, I get it, you freeze a fucking thesaurus. Just as I passed, he suddenly went rigid in his seat. He stared at me, meeting my eyes with a strange expression on his face. I was hostile, furious. I looked away quickly, shocked, and going red again. I stumbled over a book in the walkway to catch myself on the edge of the table. The girl sitting there giggled. I noticed his eyes were black, coal black. Mr. Banner signed my slip and handed me a book with no nonsense about instructions. I could tell we were going to get along. Of course, he had no choice but to send me to the one open seat in the middle of the room. I kept my eyes down as I went to sit next to him. Bewildered, the antagonist stared he gave me. I didn't look up as I set my book on the table. I took my seat. I saw his posture change from the corner of my eye. He's leaning away from me, sitting on the extreme edge of his chair, averting his face like he smelled something bad. Inconsistency, I sniffed my hair, smelled like strawberries. The scent of my favorite shampoo. It seemed like an innocent enough odor. I let my hair fall over my right shoulder, making a dark curtain between us. I tried to pay attention to the teacher. Unfortunately, the lecture was on cellular autonomy, something I already studied. I took notes carefully anyways, always looking down. I couldn't stop myself from peeking occasionally through the screen of my hair at the strange boy next to me. During the whole class, he never relaxed his stiff position on the edge of the chair, staying as far away from me as possible. I see his hand on his left leg clutched into a fist, tendons standing out under his pale skin. This too he never relaxed. He had the long sleeves of his white shirt pushed up to his elbow. His forearm was surprisingly hard and muscular beneath his light skin. He wasn't nearly as slight as he looked next to his burly brother. The class seemed to drag on longer than others. Was it because the day had finally become close to an end? Was finally coming to a close? Or because I was waiting next to tight fist? I waited for his tight fist to loosen, and it never did. He continued to sit so still, it looked like he wasn't breathing. What was wrong with him? Was this his normal behavior? I questioned my judgment on Jessica's bitterness on lunch today. Maybe she was not resentful as I thought. That couldn't have anything to do with me. He didn't know me from Eve. I peeked at him one more time and regretted it. He was glaring me down at me, his black eyes full of revulsion. As I flinched away from him, shaking against my chair, the phrase "if looks a kill" suddenly ran through my mind. At that moment, the bell rang loudly, making me jump. Edward Cullen was first out of his seat. Fluidly, he rose. He was much taller than I thought, and his back to me. He was at the door before anyone else could get out of their seat. I sat frozen in my seat, staring blankly at him. He was so mean, it wasn't fair. I began gathering up my things slowly, trying to block the anger that fueled me. For fear my eyes would tear up. For some reason my temper was high Ryan and my tear ducts. I usually cried when I was angry, humiliating tendency. "Aren't you Isabel Swan?" a male voice asked. I looked up to see a cute baby face, his pale blonde hair carefully gelled into an orderly spike, smiling at me in front of me. He obviously didn't think I smelled bad. "Bella," I corrected him with a smile. "Mike." "Hi, Mike. Do you need any help finding your next class?" "I'm heading to the gym, actually. I think I can find it." That's my next class too, he seemed thrilled. It wasn't that big of a coincidence, the school was small. He walked to class together. He was a chatter. He supplied most of the conversation and made it easy for me. He lived in California till he was 10, so he knew how I felt about the sun. It turned out he was in my English class also. He was the nicest person I met that day. Yes, but as we were entering the gym, he asked, "So did you stab Edward's Cullen with a pencil or what? I've never seen him act like that." I cringed. So I wasn't the only one that noticed. Apparently that wasn't Edward Cullen's... Why don't they say Edward? Just say Edward's usual behavior. I feel like they do everything else. Like, this motherfucker only interests himself as Mike. And this motherfucker gets two first and last name? Like, I don't know, man. Is that the boy I sat next to in biology? I asked artlessly. Yes, he said. He looks like he was peeing something. I don't know, he just wanted... I never spoke to him. He's a weird guy, Mike lingered by me instead of heading to the dressing room. If I were lucky enough to sit by you, I would have talked to you. Oh, dropping, taking a shot, shooting for the hoop. I smiled at him before walking to the girls' locker room door. He was friendly and clear in mine, but it wasn't enough to ease my irritation. The gym teacher, Coach Chap, found me in a uniform, but didn't make me dress down for today's class. At home, only 2 years of RE were required. Here, PE was mandatory all 4 years. Forks was literally my personal hell on earth. I watched 4 volleyball games running simultaneously, wondering how many injuries I sustained and inflicted playing volleyball. I felt faintly nauseated. When the bell rang at last, I walked slowly to the office to prepare my paperwork. The rain had drifted away, but the wind was strong and colder. I wrapped my arms around myself. When I walked into the warm office, I almost turned around and walked back out. Edward Cullen stood at the desk in front of me. I recognized again the tousled bronze hair. He didn't appear to notice any sound of my entrance. I stood pressed against the back wall, waiting for the receptionist to be free. He was arguing with her in a low, attractive voice. Relatable. This is me, IRL. This is why I'm an ASMR streamer. Crappa 123. I quickly picked up the gist of the argument. He was trying to trade from a 6-hour biology class to any other time. Alright, sorry. I just couldn't believe that this was about me. It had to be about something else. Something should have happened. Something had to have happened before I entered the biology room. The look of his face must have been another aggravation entirely. It was impossible that this stranger could have taken such an intense dislike to me. The door opened again. The wind suddenly gusted through the room, rustling the papers on the desk, swirling my hair around my face. The game that came in merely stepped to the desk, placed a note in the wire basket, and walked out again. But Edward Cullen's back stiffened, and he turned slowly to glare at me. His face was absurdly handsome, with piercing, hate-filled eyes. For an instant, I felt the thrill of genuine fear raising the hair on my arms. The look only lasted for a second, but it chilled me for more than a freezing wind. He turned back to the receptionist. Never mind then, he said hastily in a voice like velvet. I can see that's impossible. Thank you so much for your help. He turned on his heel without another look at me and disappeared out the door. I went meekly to the desk with a face of white for once instead of red, and entered the signed slip. How'd your first day go, dear? The reception asked maternally. Fine, I lied, my voice weak. She didn't look convinced. When I got to the trunk, it was almost the last car on the lot. It seemed like a haven, almost already the closest thing to home, and I had again this damp green hole. I sat inside for a while, staring at the windshield, blankly. As soon as I was cold enough to need the heater, so I turned the key in the engine and roared with life. I went back to Charlie's house, fighting tears the whole way there. Whew, that was a fucking longie, man. I didn't expect chapter 1 to take like 50 minutes. But I guess I didn't eyeball it right, but Bro, there's colors and bro. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know. Jesus, man. Alright. Thanks for listening.